Impulse is a 10. Good evening, everyone. Impulse is a 10-day mentoring program to test your skills in the fields of data signal processing, machine learning, and computer vision. The primary goal is to provide upcoming engineers a peek into state-of-the-art research and industry practices. Participants will also be introduced to different challenges of IEEE SPS and IEEE CS like ICASP, ICIP, CVPR, and ECCV. Today's session is about research methodologies. For guiding us in this session, we have Dr. Jayasri PK with us. She is currently working as professor in CET in the Department of Civil Engineering. She has done her BTech in Civil Engineering, MTech in Geotechnical Engineering, and her PhD degree was in Civil Engineering. She has various technical papers published in the international and national levels. On behalf of everyone, I welcome you, ma'am, and wish everyone a fruitful session ahead. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mithun, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I have come to know that most of you are, or rather, all of you are doing your BTech degree. Actually, this lecture I usually take for either the PG courses or for research scholars, because it is for them that the research procedure is more important. However, your IEEE section has asked me to give you a lecture on research methodology. And before going into that, let me tell you that I was, you can see, quite accidentally, maybe it is accidentally. And right now I remember my gurus who held my hand when I entered into the research field. One is Dr. K.S. Bina of Cochin University of Science and Technology, and and it was their hard work, their passion towards research that made me do something in the field of civil engineering and come out with some findings, of course, which is applicable to the society. Now, for you people, when you are in the BTech, see, when I was doing my BTech, I never thought of doing research or anything. But once I joined my MTech course, I began to realize that research is part and parcel of the MTech course. And after that, when I joined the CET, after doing research during my MTech, it had already become a passion to me, and that is why I thought of continuing research. Now, for you guys, let me tell you that you might have not thought about where you will be going after your BTech classes, BTech course. But wherever you go, unless in a software field, so in software field also, of course, there is research, but the typical software job that usually people take. Other than that, if you go to the core industry sector, or if you go to some research organizations, or you go for higher studies other than MBA, even in MBA, you will have to do some sort of research and arrive at some findings. So everywhere in your future career, you might come across research. So knowing about what research is and how you can proceed with the research, that is what I'm going to tell you today. I'm not going into the various research methodologies, all the theory part and all that. I will just give how you should do the research, or what you can arrive at by doing the research. In general, I'll be speaking to you in general. I know that you are all BTech students. Okay. Mithun, is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Hope my screen is visible. Mithun, is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So this is in general what I am going to talk to you about. I won't take too much of your time. I'll try to wind up as quick as possible because right now this topic is not much relevant to you. Now, this is a puzzle which I'm going to give you. You have 9 dots, or you take a paper and draw 9 dots on the paper. And without lifting your pen, you try to draw 4 straight lines, which should connect all these 9 dots. Are you in a position to do this? Or should I skip this? What do you say, Mithun? I just wanted to introduce to you how to enter into the world of research with the help of this small exercise. At least some of you can try, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please. I'll give you exactly 1 minute. Your time starts now. Somebody has answered it. You can switch on your video and show it to me on your screen. See, this is a very common question, usually for what do you say, some sort of training programs and all, just to make you think in a different way. Okay, 1 minute is over. Maybe you can try later. I'm not going to disclose the answer to you. If you want to, you can try later. I'll tell you the answer towards the end of the lecture. The only thing is that you should think differently. I'll give you a clue. You should think differently. You think out of the box. And that is what you should do when you do research. You have a problem. You have to find the solution. And that is research. But how do you find the solution? There can be a number of solutions. Some may be complicated, some may be easy. You have to find the right one by thinking in a different manner. That is, you should stand out from the crowd. So let us proceed. So research is actually a way of thinking. You should think in a different manner, and whatever you think, it should add to your knowledge. See, earlier, people used to say that research is the actual word meaning is researching, searching for something, but searching it again and again. But that is not research what what exactly research is. Actually, it is a way of thinking. And when you do research, you should have a habit of questioning. Why is it so? What is it exactly? Uh, how is it possible? There can be a number of questions. So you have seen small kids, right? They have an when we tell them something like not to do this thing or that, they always tell why is it so? Why can't we do it in such a way? And actually, that is a part of research. Being enthusiastic. You should have the enthusiasm to go deep into that particular phenomenon, and only if you question that phenomenon in different ways from different angles, you will be able to arrive at different answers, and you will have a number of answers to that particular problem. Then the next thing what you should do is analyze all those answers, eliminate maybe the impractical ones, maybe the difficult ones, and you can come up with a very feasible practical solution, and that will become the outcome of your research. So this is what research is, and especially in engineering research or scientific research, we make use of some theories or some principles to explain the phenomenon that we are trying to find out. So what we are trying to find out, it should be something new. So that novelty component, the innovative component, that is part and parcel of research. See, this was the first research that was done by man. He never knew that by rubbing stones, he could then he could develop fire. But once he did it, actually he found a solution. But he never thought, how did it happen? And that reasoning, why did it happen? That was found out later by man himself. So this is something what is called as basic research. You do something and you get some solution, but why does that solution uh, or how does that solution come? That should be the answer to your research. That should be the solution of your research problem. So research is not information gathering. See, now you have a very good platform like the internet. Earlier, we used to have only books, the libraries, the newspapers, or magazines to gather the information. Now you have internet. Everything is there. It may be correct. Whatever you look into, you get an answer. The answer may be correct. Sometimes it may not be correct. But this gathering of information, that is not research. So research is not just transporting facts from one place to maybe your thesis. Finally, some people, why do you do the research? Other than research organizations, maybe if you go for higher studies, it is mandatory that you should do research as part of your course. Maybe for your PG course or for your PhD course, research is mandatory. And finally, you have to compile your findings into a thesis, and finally, you have to submit your thesis to get your degree. So what some people try to do is they try to gather knowledge or gather information from different places and try to compile it into a book. So that is not research. Instead, that is just authoring a book, just like writing a book. So research can be defined as something that is a systematic process of collecting and analyzing information in order to increase our understanding of the phenomenon about which we are concerned or interested. So you should collect the information. You should know what it is. For that, you need to collect information. And then you have to arrive at solutions. That finding out the method of finding out the solution, that has to be done by you. Maybe the solution may be evident, but what is the reason for that solution? Finding out that solution may be the solution of your research problem. And that is what exactly research is. Maybe the explanation of a phenomenon or finding out something new that is not there. So a researcher is someone who is an authority of the problem which he is looking into. Nobody else can question him because he is the master. He is the one who has been working more and more on that particular problem, and he is the authority of that problem. He is the one who is finding out the solution for that problem. So he is the authority. Now, this is another common research problem. I thank Professor Dr. Chandramohan, the former director of CET School of Management, who gave me this slide. This is an interesting problem. Actually, this was a problem that was developed by a person called Dunker in 1945. This is also another exercise to simulate your way of thinking or to simulate your brain muscles. See, the problem is like you have a box of candles, maybe a box of candle or a single candle. You have a box of drawing pins and you have a matchbox. So what all are there? You have a candle, you have a box of pins, just the drawing pins which you commonly use, and a candle. The task is you have to light the candle and fix it to a wall. Light the candle and fix it to a wall. The wall is vertical. You have to fix this candle to the wall. How will you do that? Again, 1 minute. You can answer my question. Anyone? You have 3 properties: the candle, the drawing pin, and the matchsticks. You have to light the candle, fix it to the wall. How will you do that?
Do we necessarily have to use the drawing pins?
Yes, you should use the drawing pin.
Okay.
They are the properties which are given to you. Otherwise, how will you do?
Maybe I can
Will you use
try, using the candle wax to wax it to the wall vertically without the thumbtack.
Okay, that's a solution, but will it stand there? May not.
Yeah.
It may not be a feasible solution. But you have thought of a solution. You have given a solution. That is good. What is your name?
Ananya, ma'am.
Ananya.
Ananya.
Okay, Ananya. Somebody else? You have a candle, you have a set of drawing pins, and you have the matchsticks with you. Fix the candle to the wall with the help of the properties and light the candle. Okay, I shall show you the answer. What did they do? They used the box which contained the pins. See, actually, that is an unimportant property. We are just given the drawing pins, the candle, and the matchsticks. But if you use the unimportant property that is there somewhere else, then you will be able to arrive at a solution. See, I remember one of my chemistry professors when I did my +1, +2 course. One of my chemistry professors, he was doing research. He was doing research in University College Trivandrum. he was teaching. He was teaching us, and as part time, he was doing research. So every evening after his college hours, he used to go to the research lab and do his research work. And finally, in the end, at night, maybe after 12 or something, by midnight, he used to return home every day. And his research continued for 7 to 8 years. Every day he used to do, see, it is chemical research, right? So he used to prepare some solution and all, and every day he used to clean all the vessels before going out from the lab, keep everything tidy, and then return home. And finally, one day he was fed up. He was not getting a solution, and that is part and parcel of research. I should say that you finally get uh, irritated, or you get disheartened just because you do not get a solution. And he also was in such a way that he was not getting the solution, and he was almost disheartened. And one day what he did was, not day, it was night, he didn't wash the utensils or the uh, glassware and all. He just uh, whatever he did it, he just kept them there and returned home. The next evening, when he returned to the lab, surprisingly, he found that the solution that he needed was there in his one of his beakers. That is, his solution was, that particular solution had to be kept for 24 hours to develop that chemical which he was trying to find out. So you have to think in different possible ways. Every day you will be doing something. When you enter into research, you will have certain methodology. You will be arriving at some certain methodology, what you should do, how you should do, from different, by reading from different journals and all, and you will be doing the same thing. But only if you think differently, you will be, you might see, like just like this, you will have many minor properties around you. Make use of them. So that is what we say, when you go into the research, you should think in a different way. See, for normal studies, that is not needed. You just, whatever that is there in your textbook, you just mark up, you can write for the examination, and you can pass the examination. But when you enter into research, you should utilize your brain in a better way. You should stand out from the crowd. See, remember the problem which I gave you at the beginning of the lecture? Only if you think differently, you will be able to arrive at that solution. So that is one of the main point which you should remember when you enter into research. Think in a different way. And if you try to do research in any research organization, uh, maybe you can do research in two different ways. Maybe in a research organization like ISRO, or some companies like Bosch or something, you will be doing research for a particular problem. There is for IIT or somewhere else, you will be asked to do research compulsorily, because that is part and parcel of your curriculum. You have to find a research problem. You have to solve that problem and give a report about how you have solved it and what is your solution. So that is part and parcel of the curriculum. So when you go for that, you should first understand uh, what is the need of doing research. See, you can do research in any way, but is your research uh, currently needed? Is it an active research problem, or has somebody, are you doing research in a currently active area? Are you trying to come up with a new idea? Are you trying to come up with a practical solution? Is there any innovative content in your work? That is very much important when you analyze a research problem or when you do research. What new are you going to do in this particular research field? That is very much important. Novelty is one of the key components in research. And have you found out what is already there in this particular field? See, recently, one of the researchers in Kerala itself, when he was talking to me, he told me that he, with the help of Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment, with the help of their funding, he was working on drones which are capable to detect cracks in railway lines, so that in order to reduce the accidents which are caused by such cases. So he was doing research on that, and finally, within 2 or 3 years, he developed a drone which was able to detect such cracks easily. And when he was about to publish his results, he found that such a drone was already there in the market in Mumbai. It was a Chinese product. From wherever it is already there. Then why do you want to do research and find out a solution which is already there? So that is what I meant when I say that you have to do research in a currently active area. And there are several such problems during this lecture itself. I can give you a number of examples related to that. This is another example. See, you do research in different ways. You can do fundamental research. Maybe you have some material. What that material is made of, that becomes basic research. What is its chemical composition? What is its mineralogical composition? All those becomes a basic research. But using that material, when you do something to improve the technology, to develop the technology, then it becomes applied research. See, this is example of a research which is conducted by management students. Apple's iPod sales increased by 200% from 2001 to 2008, but it decreased by 6% in 2009. What is the reason for this decrease? So they have to, so this is the research problem of a certain, company. This is not relevant maybe to the society, maybe it is not relevant to the humankind. It may not give additional results or fruitful results for the development of mankind or for the development of society. These results will be applicable only to the Apple company. So this research is, so only Apple is interested in this research. So this is what is, this is just an example of applied research. But you can do applied research in different ways. Maybe you can compare the sales of all the companies, how some companies have boomed up, how some companies like Nokia, they have fallen down, and you can arrive at a solution and you say that say this is the solution, this is the reason why some companies survived. And when you find the solution, you will definitely see that those companies survived because they always thought in a different way. They thought about the future rather than thinking about the present time. They thought about the future, and that is how they survived. I was just giving you a solution to a research problem. Now, when you go to IITs or IIM, you will be asked to select a research advisor. See, that is the first part of research. Maybe for MTech, you do not have the freedom. In some of the institutions, maybe in most of the institutions, you have the freedom to choose a research advisor. And this research advisor will be the one who will be guiding you throughout the research. And this is one of the main, the components or main factors which will decide whether you will be able to complete your research or not. There are different examples, but I don't want to say all those examples now. Let us see the three types of research advisors. The research advisors, You can get advisors in different ways. The first one is collaborator type. Collaborator type means he's a junior member, maybe a junior faculty in the institution who has adequate time to spend with you and who is in need for doing research and publishing papers, because in order to improve his career, he has to do more and more research. So he'll be helping you throughout. Now, the second one is hands-off type. Hands-off type means he may be a middle level person, not so senior one, not so junior one, and he will have adequate time. Maybe he may not have adequate time as that of the collaborator type, but he'll have time to spend for you, as well as he'll have the experience. He might have done research with many more students previously. He might have the experience too. And the third one is the senior scientist type, the top level professors. They'll be very busy, very, very busy. They won't have enough time, but they have the experience. And my advice to you all is that if you are given the freedom to choose an advisor, you can either choose two, that is hands of type, the middle level, who will spend some time with you and his experience will add uh, value to your research. Or you can have a combination of 1 and 3. That is good. Because 1 will have sufficient time and 3 will have the sufficient experience, which will suit to arrive at good solutions. See, there are many examples. Let me tell you one example which happened in one of the IITs. A person, I'm not naming the person, he is now a faculty member in our college itself. He joined, put under the senior scientist type. He was not given the freedom to choose the advisor at that time in the 90s. He was put under the senior scientist type, who had very little time to spend for the research scholar, but he had definitely very good experience. And after spending his valuable 3 years, he was in a job at that time. And he had taken leave from the job and gone to the institute to do research. Even after spending 3 years of his time, he was not able to complete his research and arrive at a solution. So desperately, he left the institute and joined back in his job. But he had the passion towards research. So after taking maybe a gap of 1 or 2 years, he joined back in the same institute. At that time, the first type advisor, a new advisor of the first type, joined there. At that time, when he rejoined, a new advisor was there who had ample time, and he had adequate knowledge as he had recent exposure to some foreign institutes, and he was a very active person. So with the help of that, with the experience of that senior scientist type advisor, within a single year, this faculty member, that is our faculty member, was able to complete a research within 1 to 1.5 years. So last 3 years when he did, actually he didn't have any result at all. But within 1 to 1.5 years, he was able to complete his research just because of the combination of 1 and 3. And he got a number of awards in that field as an outcome of his research work. So this is one of the key criterion which you should remember when you are given the freedom to choose an advisor. So this is what I just told you. So finally, the bottom line is the research quality, and there may be different advisors. When you join an institute, you can find different types of persons. Usually, the people who do research, they are having a different mindset. That is, they'll be into the research as well as consultancy work. They'll be very busy, and they'll be having the eagerness or the thrive to do research more and more and publish more and more papers and get more and more credits. That that has actually become part of their blood. So uh, before choosing an advisor, this is my advice. Okay, before choosing an advisor, it is better that you consult your seniors about the advisor. How whether any student has graduated under him, or is it have a general inquiry about the advisor before joining under any professor. And you can also have look into the website, giving his biodata, how much he has published, how many citations does he have, how many people have cited him. So all those gives an indication of his research quality. But research quality is not the one that is uh, uh, actually it is mandatory. I can say that it is mandatory, but along with that, but it is better that you consult your seniors also, seniors who have done research in the same institute. You have a talk with them about the various faculty members, and if you have the freedom, choose an advisor after interacting with your seniors. That is my personal advice. Okay. So this is another type of research that people say that they do research, but this is what they actually do. That is, you will be doing something related to a particular area. Maybe I'll talk on the material side. Somebody has suffered a material. See, this happened in CET itself. I can say that this happened in CET itself, and it was a very what do you say? It had become a controversy in those days. Like one of the researchers had done research for a certain number of years, and he had published some papers in that area. And after 1 or 2 years, another researcher who was working in the same area did work on the same material or a similar material, and said that that material was good for that particular thing. And that is not research. That is not what exactly research is. See, one material may behave in one way, another similar material may behave in a similar way only. It won't behave in a different way. So that is not good research. You can say that it is research just for the sake of getting a degree or something. You can say that it is research, but that is not what exactly research is. Research is always thinking differently, not following somebody else's path. That is not exactly research. It may lead to controversies, and it may blacklist you from the research field. There are umpteen number of examples where people have been blacklisted just because of copying somebody else's results or modifying somebody else's results in one way or the other. You might have heard, you might have heard a number of examples related to that. See, one of our senior most scientists in India who was no, he's there now also. He is, I think he was uh, awarded Padma Shri and all, and I forgot his name. After awarding Padma Shri, he had been uh, accused of publishing papers related to somebody else's work. Actually, he did not do that. It was some of the students who did that, but finally the blame came to the professor who got Padma Shri award. So this happens very usually. I can cite one more example, like you call it as plagiarism, right? We now call it as plagiarism. I can cite one more example. Actually, it happened in Kerala in one of the private engineering colleges. They conducted a conference. They conducted it very well, and all the papers which were published or which were accepted for the conference, which were presented in the conference, they were later converted to papers, and it was the whole papers were published as a single volume journal, and that too by an acclaimed publisher like Elsevier. And later, after 2 or 3 months, I was consulted by one of the conference organizers that they are having a problem, and the problem is that one of the papers which was published by them in this by this Elsevier publishers, they got a complaint that from Canada that their results had been replicated in this conference proceedings. And I was asked to review to go through the complaint and review the paper. And when I went through the paper, I found that whatever that was done in Canada, it was exactly replicated in this conference by somebody in NIT, one of the NITs in the north. I don't want to name the NIT. Actually, the student had done that. The professor may not be aware of that, but finally, they were working on some soil, and all the results that they got in the Canada soil, they replicated and showed that they got it in the soil in India. Exactly same. All the graphs were same. The conclusion, the introduction, everything was the same. So I had to give a report likewise only, that it was almost 90% plagiarized. And finally, that professor, it is not the student, because the student just goes away from the institute within 6 or 7 months once he starts the research. But the professor was blacklisted by the journal, and his papers, the blacklisting means his papers will not be published by that journal again. So these are common problems which people do without understanding the consequences. So there are some ethics or some moral principles which we should follow when we do research, and not to copy research of others. Okay. So you can do research in 2 different ways. So this was what I was trying to tell you, that when you go to a research institution like IITs or IIMs, you do the model 1. That is, you have to find out an area which is quite relevant now, and then you have to work on it. While model 2 is, you are in an industry, you have a problem, that is maybe you are in a you are working in a company, and the company is having this problem with a particular product. You will have to do some research and find out the solution to that problem. So that is model 2. So in model 2, the problem is given to you, while in model 1, you have to find out the problem. So you can do research in 2 different ways. And in model 1, once you find out the problem, you say that 25% of your research is over, because finding the problem is a very difficult task. A problem that is relevant in the present day world and which is useful to the society. What is this? Maybe let me just skip those things. And how will you arrive at a research problem? If you go to IITs or IIMs, how will you arrive at a research problem? Maybe from observation. You look around, you'll get a problem. See, there are, I can tell you an example. Like once I was going through the seashore somewhere in Alappuzha, and I found that there were heaps of waste material of coir. After wrecking the coir pith and some coir fibers they were heaped in the near to the seashore. And after once rain comes, these materials, they decay, and everything the leachate, it goes into the water. So actually that was a problem which I found, and I asked my students to work out a solution for that. So that problem I found from the observation, that it is causing some problem to the society. They are not able to dispose the waste, and this waste is causing harm to their water. So as engineers, we were trying to find a solution to that, and we were successful in finding the solution to that. So that is how to arrive at the problem by observation. Then a common method that usually students do is they do literature review. That is, you have a number of standard journals, you read the journals again and again, and you find out what are the gaps, and then you try to arrive at a problem. Or you can go for conferences. There are research conferences that happen around the world. Now everything is online, so you can attend conferences. Different people will be uh, they'll be talking about their research and how they have arrived at their solution. Everything they'll be talking about. So you can hear about various research problems, and you can find out in which area you are interested, and then you can find a solution to that, or you can arrive at a problem from those different areas. Then you have the experts, that is your advisors. Talk to your advisors. Maybe your advisors may be having some problems, they'll give you the problem. So these are the different ways by which you can select the problem. Mithun or Ananya, how long can I continue? When should I stop?
Ma'am, the session is till 8. So
8
yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try to find it up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, ma'am.
So let me skip these things, and now I'll come to, now it is 7:50, right? So only 10 more minutes. I'll just come to an interesting method of arriving at solution. Solutions to research problems. We'll see different ways of how people have arrived at the research problems. This will be interesting to you. See, this is, you might have heard this problem, the problem of empty soap box. That is a soap manufacturing company in Japan. They had a problem like when some person bought their soap, he got it as an empty wrapper. There was no soap inside that, which means that there is some defect in their manufacturing process. Maybe in the assembly line, there is some defect, that is inside one of the wrappers, they could not keep the soap. So there is a defect in their manufacturing process or the assembly process. So in order to arrive at a solution for that, it was a Japanese company. They developed a very costly, expensive machine, X-ray machine, and the entire assembly was, and two people were also appointed to look into this, and the whole assembly was allowed to go through the X-ray machine, and they were able to find out the empty wrappers. But a small company which faced the same problem, they did not have adequate funds to make such a costly, expensive machine. Instead, they used an industrial electric fan, a very cheap solution, which blew off the empty covers. So, this is what I told you before. You can have any number of solutions to any problems, but your idea should be you should try to come up with the most feasible, the most practical solution. Another example, you might have heard this one. Maybe in the film Three Idiots also there is a mention about this. That is, Americans, they developed a pen that worked at zero gravity, upside down, underwater, in practically any surface, including crystal, in a temperature range from below freezing to over 300 degrees Celsius. Because normal pens which works under gravity will not work in the space. So they developed a very costly pen. And they say that instead the Russians used the pencil, a very cheap solution. But that is not exactly what the solution is. Even this solution had problems. Like the pencil, when it was used, uh, the graphite which is used, the lead that is used in the pencil, of course, it breaks off. and it used to float in the what do you say? Not the satellite, the space shuttle. And graphite being a good conductor of heat, good conductor of electricity, this creates short circuits and fires, everything. So, and again, the research continued, and finally, they arrived at the modern day space bill. So, the need becomes your research. So, here the research arises from the need. So, that is one way. So, an ant can see, this is a very good example. Like an ant can be here is killed in two ways: by smashing it with your hand or by bombarding it with a missile. You can use the cheapest way, the feasible way, the most practical way. You have any number of solutions. You might have any number of solutions. So this also I'll skip. I'll tell you another a very interesting finding from research, how they have arrived at a solution. That is the you know Alfred Wegener, right? The climatologist, the German climatologist, who told that earlier uh, the world was having only one continent and only one sea, and the continent was called Pangaea and the sea was called Panthalassa. Pangaea and Panthalassa. And now we have different continents, right? So, how did he arrive at his solution or his reasoning? And he had a hypothesis. Hypothesis, what is hypothesis? Hypothesis means false statement. He had a false statement. He made a false statement. Where actually, his life period is, see, this is the present day world. And his life period is 1880 to 1930. That is in the 1910s. He was doing, he made this hypothesis in 1910 or 1915, that period only, when there was no sufficient calculators or computing equipment to arrive at various, to solve various theories and all. He made the statement, like he just made the statement that uh, uh, in the present day world, the continents are at different places, but one day uh, all these continents were clubbed into a single continent, and he named it as Pangaea. How did he arrive at that reasoning? So that is a false statement which he made. And this is what you exactly do in research. You first make a false statement. You say that this material is good, or you can you get a solution like this. So that is the false statement, and then you arrive at a methodology. You find out a methodology how to prove that this statement is true, and that becomes your solution. So here, let us see how he did that. So Wegener suggested that a supercontinent he called Pangaea once existed, and he further hypothesized that about 200 million years ago, this supercontinent began breaking into smaller continents, which then drifted to their present positions. ഇവിടെ കണ്ടോ, നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യ അവിടെ നോക്കി, നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു അന്ന്. ഈ ശരിക്കും ഇവിടെ വരേണ്ടത് നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യ, അന്ന് ഇന്ത്യ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു, കണ്ടോ? See, he gave a number of reasonings. One of the reasonings is that he tried to fit South America and Africa, and he could get an approximate fit. He could not get the actual fit because of the erosion processes and deposition processes that happened. But later in 1960s, scientists again did research on the same thing, and finally they could find an exact fit, approximately exact fit between South America and Africa. And this was one of the reasonings which helped to establish his theory of Pangaea and Panthalassa in 1915. Actually, it was supported with data only in 1960s. Actually, they also found out or they took soil from almost 1900 meter deep from both the places, South America as well as Africa, and they found that the soil was exactly the same. And that is one of the findings, or one of the what do you say, the reasonings that they gave, or how they proved that both were a single land in the olden days. And another reasoning which they found, that they found the same type of fossil both in South America as well as Africa. In the Mesozoic era, there used to be a dinosaur called as Mesosaurus, and the fossils of Mesosaurus were found both in Africa and South America, which meant that, see, what is the sea between South America and Africa? Now it is Atlantic Ocean, and this distance is nearly 2,500 kilometers. There is no way that these huge, big, what do you say, mammals, they might have crossed the sea and come to South America from Africa. There is no reason for that. So they believed that once these two continents might have been together, because these or the mammals of the same kind, they could find both in Africa as well as South America. So that was the second evidence. And the third evidence which they produced was that, see, in North America, here in North America, there were the Appalachian Mountains. And in British Isles and in Scandinavia, they could find the continuation of the mountains when they checked the rocks of the mountain chains. And when they tried to fit it, they could find that these Appalachian Mountains and the mountains, they call it as Caledonian Mountains, and these mountains, they were actually one initially. So this also proved that this portion might have existed together one time. And this is some other reasoning that they see, India was here earlier, near to Antarctica, and later India drifted off. ഇപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ എത്തി, ഇവിടുന്ന് ഇവിടെ എത്തി India. So they did some studies on glacial ice, and glacial ice 300 million years ago are found deposited in different parts of India, which is found in Antarctica too. So that is another. It is found in Africa, many places in South America, in many places they found the Australia. So which proves that all these continents were together once. So this is how you go for or arrive at various results, and or you should prove, in order to prove your hypothesis, in order to prove your theory, you should have supporting evidences. So it is your duty that you should produce evidences to support the law that you have developed. So this was finally how plate tectonics law was developed by Wegener in 1915. So this also I'll skip, and shall I wind up? ഇതൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരുപാടുണ്ട്. Let me conclude. ഒരു കാര്യം കൂടെ പറഞ്ഞോട്ടെ. Plagiarism and publishing ethics, I told you that is one of the most important things which you should think of when doing research. Never copy somebody else's ideas and never copy somebody else's results. And once you complete your research, if it is something new, try to get a copyright for that. That is, you try to get a patent for that. And then try to publish your results. If you start publishing earlier itself, then you may not get a patent on your product, on your intellectual property. So first, you file a patent for your application, and then you try to publish your results, because publishing your results is mandatory when you go to research institutes like IITs and IIMs. For academic institutions, publishing the papers is mandatory. But if you are doing research in other organizations like companies, then you can definitely go for patents. Do you know one of our alumni? I'm sorry, Mr. AJ Kumar. He is with General Electricals at US, and he is, I think, 1960s or 70s pass out of our electrical engineering department. He is a person having 300 patents in his name. One from College of Engineering Trivandrum. He is an alumnus of College of Engineering Trivandrum. He is having 300 patents in his name. He is working under General Electricals in US. So this is the solution to the riddle which I gave you at the beginning of the lecture. So you have 9 dots. Only if you think out of the dots, you will be able to solve the problem. what we, even me, when I tried to solve the problem, I was trying to do the arrive at the solution within the 9 dots only. I was thinking about the space only within the 9 dots. But if you think about the space outside the 9 dots, then you will be able to arrive at the solution. And this is what happens in research. You will be looking inside the problem only. You go outside, actually, when you do research, you will be disheartened at many times. I told you, at many times you will be disheartened. At that time, what you should do is you should just stop research. When I was in IIT doing my postdoctoral fellowship, many times I had the same feeling. Had the feeling of stopping research and coming back to Trivandrum. But what I used to do at that time was I was just went out of the lab. Since I was not getting the results, I just went out of the lab, and then I used to roam around the Chennai city. I was doing in IIT Madras, and after coming back and after getting fresh during nights, I used to go back to the lab and continue my work. Then I had I was able to think in different ways, and I was able to get the results many times. And one of the main criteria which researchers usually say that you take a break. When you do research, you take a break, especially Sunday. Sunday you should not work, because the Sunday is a day which is given, which we as human beings have kept apart for relaxing our brain. Even when you do your studies or your assignments and all, try to keep Sundays free and relax your brain. And that is a very good exercise that you can give to your brain, relaxing, because your brain is always active with one thing or the other. You'll be worried about what to do next, what to do tomorrow, the assignments tomorrow, the exams tomorrow. So keep a Sunday a holiday, keep it a holiday. That is what I learned when I did my research. And one more thing which I have to tell you as final advice is that when you start your research, the first thing that you will face is failure. Your first experiment or your first analysis will definitely be a failure. Not definitely, maybe mostly. This is what I tell my research students too. Your first experiments can be a failure because you are just studying. You're doing the first one. Never be disheartened with failures. And as you know, failure is the stepping stone to success. And only from failures we'll be learning new things. How it has failed. When it fails, just try to understand how it has failed and try to analyze the failure and try to become successful. That is my final advice to you all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. And thank you for the patient listening.
Participants can ask if they have any doubts. You can either ask in the chat box or come off mute and ask doubts.
I was not going into the details. I was just trying to introduce you to the world of research with the help of simple examples. So there may not be much doubts in it. I was just talking from my experience. So if you have any doubts, you can get my number from the coordinators, and you can even ask me later if you have any doubt. ഇന്ന് പറഞ്ഞതിൽ വെച്ച് ഡൗട്ട് വരാനൊന്നും പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് കാര്യമൊന്നുമില്ല. But if you want to know something about research rather than anything that I told you, even that you can ask.